Thanks again for agreeing to be a participant in this research. You're already making great progress. Now, as I mentioned before, one of the primary purposes of this research is to accurately measure total PCI compliance cost for retail merchants just like you. Now, because every merchant is different and because these costs can easily hide in various parts of the balance sheet, this next part of the study uses a worksheet for each of the 12 requirements of the PCI DSS standard. Now, these flexible worksheets have been designed to help you quickly identify the costs related to each of the requirements. And you can generate an accurate estimate of each requirement's impact on your environment this way. There should be ample room in the worksheet to capture all of these expenses, and don't worry, you do not need to fill out the entire worksheet. It is not necessary to be accurate to the penny, but I do recommend that you give yourself plenty of time to complete each requirement to ensure that you've identified all of the hidden costs within your organization, and without turning this into a chore. Now, if you do get interrupted, simply scroll to the bottom of the page and click Save and Continue Later. Now, this will give you a custom bookmark which you can save to continue the survey at any time. You can have it emailed to yourself, or you can simply go back to PCIsurvey.com from the same computer, and when you go through the enrollment process again, it will ask you if you wish to continue where you left off. Now, there's two distinct cost categories that together will comprise the total cost of PCI compliance. There's activity cost, and then there's capitalized expenditures. Activity cost represents all the costs that are calculated using the formula wage times time. Now, this would include internal PCI-related tasks calculated at the hourly pay times the total number of hours devoted to the task. For instance, if your systems administrator is paid maybe $50 an hour, and you estimate that he spent 100 hours configuring your firewalls, then that's $5,000 for this activity. Now, maybe you have a full-time equivalent who's specifically dedicated to PCI security. If that's the case, you can enter it one of two ways. You can enter their wage times the number of hours per year, which some organizations use 2,080, others use 2,087. Either way, that will come up with the total annual impact for that particular employee. Or you can simply enter their salary times 1. Another example is third-party service providers or service contracts, which may be calculated at the service cost times the number of renewals per year. So, for example, an annual support contract, $10,000, that renews once per year, you'd simply enter a time of 1. On the other hand, if it is a quarterly renewal, you would enter 4 renewal periods per year. And of course, a monthly renewal, perhaps you would enter a frequency of 12. Common examples of activity costs include any activities directly related to maintaining PCI compliance. These may include studying the PCI standard, contracting security consultants, training employees, recruiting for PCI-related positions, maintaining firewalls, antivirus patches, remediating network scans, reviewing logs, monitoring processes, record keeping, and of course the PCI audit process itself. Affected staff could include IT, security, HR, risk, project management, sales, support, clerical administration, accounting, internal auditing, and management. Other compliance-related costs that can be calculated using this formula include annual costs such as insurance, license fees, support contracts, service fees, taxes, legal dues, assessment fees and fines, network scans, and penetration tests. Now, the second category of cost is capitalized expenditures. Capitalized expenditures are those costs incurred by acquiring or improving assets that are directly related to your PCI compliance. Since the value of any capital investment may be reasonably applied over many years, this upfront cost will need to be applied as a prorated value. For simplicity and consistency, this research will be calculating annual cost using a straight line depreciation model that's based on the estimated number of years you believe the investment will last before it's obsolete or otherwise replaced. A capitalized expenditure is calculated as the actual asset cost minus any anticipated salvage or scrap value upon disposal of the asset, and then divided by the total useful life of that asset or investment. For example, a web application firewall, I will just put WAF, that costs about $32,000 may have an actual useful life of 10 years, after which time you may expect to sell that asset for around $2,000. The upfront cost minus the scrap value divided by the useful life lets us know that the applicable annual PCI cost for that asset investment was $3,000. Now, if this is the first year that you've become PCI compliant, you may also have spent a considerable sum implementing specific infrastructure or architectural changes, or perhaps redrafting policies or re-engineering business processes to become compliant. Now, it's reasonable to expect that you will not have to repeat that exercise for at least a few years. In this case, while this may not be a capital investment per se in physical assets, you may still want to itemize some of these costs as they come up with using the capitalized expenditures formula. For instance, rewriting policies may have come to a total sum of $1,000, but you won't have to repeat that exercise, we'll say, for 3 years. So in this way, you can quickly calculate the actual annual impact of that particular exercise. Now, this worksheet and these formulas, they're all meant to help you easily visualize the costs of PCI compliance throughout your organization. You do not need to include the comment. It's just there to help you remember what you've written. And you can easily combine the activity costs and capitalized expenditures into a single line if needed. The subtotal and the formulas will automatically add those values together. Now, we hope you find this exercise valuable. Certainly it's valuable to us as researchers, but for you this may also be a useful exercise that's beneficial as you visualize and get a better understanding of your PCI costs within your organization. Thanks again for participating. I will put this video at the bottom of each page, so if you need a refresher, you may do so at any time. Again, remember, at the bottom of each page, you have the Save and Continue Later link. Feel free to use that, and this system will automatically save your work as you go. Thanks again, and we appreciate your help.